Welcome back. In this video, we will continue to sketch for our lampshade power cord. You will see that I am still in the Step 13 file, and if I open up my power cord and cord components, I will activate my cord component, and I will not edit sketch 1, but instead, I would like to make a new sketch. This sketch will be directly in the middle of this arm running right through these holes. So I need to create some construction geometry. Specifically, I would like to create a construction plane. I will go Construct, Midplane. This will place a plane in between two faces. So I'll select this face and this face, and you will see my construction plane preview. I'll say OK, and now I know that this plane is directly in the middle of this arm. So I can now create my sketch. Again, with my cord component active, I will go New Sketch and select this plane. I will also like to slice my model so that I can see my sketch more clearly. And if I would like to, I can hide sketch 1 so that this geometry is not involved. You may notice a slight optical illusion between this arm and this arm. They don't look like they are at 90-degree angles, but they really are. So let's begin to sketch. I know that I want to draw the cord for this part that goes through here, down my arm, and back through here. So I'll go to my line tool, and this time I'm going to sketch the shape and then add my constraints. I'll come out into space with my line tool, and I will click once to start my line, and then I will click and drag to add an arc to the end of that line. When I release, it draws my endpoint. Let's do that again. Click and drag to drag an arc, release, and draw another line. You will notice that there's a tangent constraint applied at this end, but not at this end. Same here. So I will go tangent and apply it here to here and here to here. These points are already perpendicular. You can see that as I drag it, so I do not need to add my perpendicular constraints. Before I can place my constraints, I need to bring in my projected geometry. I will go P for Project and select this line and this line. I'll go OK, and now I can begin to place my constraints. I will go Coincident and snap this endpoint to the shift midpoint of my line. Let's do that again. Point to the shift midpoint. Now those lines are black, and I can begin to dimension my lines. D for the dimension, and I'll change this to a radius of 5, and this as a radius of 5. Now I need a dimension from this line to this line, and this will be a distance of 10. Again, I'll hit Escape a couple of times, and then drag across my model and hit X to turn this line into construction geometry and remove my profile. I want a couple of lines to extend off the end here, 5 millimeters. So I'll go Line, zoom in, click and drag straight out, which will automatically place my perpendicular constraint, and now I can go D for Dimension, 5. Let's do that one more time. I'll go Line, Endpoint, straight out, perpendicular constraint is automatically applied, D for Dimension, 5. This is all I need for this sketch, so I'll hit Stop Sketch and orbit my model. Remember, we turned sketch 1 off, and we can turn it back on now. We can see now that our sketch looks like this. Comes up around through this arm, up again and around, and then there's a break, and then it comes down to the arm here. I'm going to show all of my components, so I'll activate my top component, and then I will go through and unhide all of my components in my model. Notice I may need to unroll and check my subcomponents in my assembly components. Again, I can turn off my fastener assemblies. I don't really need them while I'm modeling right now. Now that we can see the full model, we can understand what else we need to do in this sketch. I want to place a sketch that connects the point here to here, this point here to my switch, and my switch to my plug. I will use a series of sketches in 3D to build these. Remember under Preferences that in Design we have Allow 3D Sketching checked on. If you would like to work in 3D sketching, you may, but for now I'm going to draw this sketch off to the side and then move my points. So I will activate my chord component one more time, and I will leave these two sketches on because I am going to reference them in this sketch. So I will go New Sketch, and I will just select the bottom plane. Because it doesn't matter where I draw these components, I will move them in the appropriate position. Once you have selected your plane, we can begin to draw our sketch. I will sketch a spline like this and say OK, a simple 2-point spline. I will sketch another spline down here and say OK, again a simple 2-point spline. And then here I'm going to sketch a 4-point spline and say OK. If I orbit my model, we can see that they are all flat on the ground plane, but we can move them up into place. Before we do that, I found it helpful to change their grips into something more like what they will see when they're on the model. So I will turn this grip to the side, and I will turn this grip up vertically. Let's move over here and do the same. This one will be horizontal. This one will be vertical. And these two we will edit once they are in the space. This one, we know exactly where it should go, so I will move this into the midpoint there and into the midpoint here, and their grips have adjusted accordingly. Notice that it's constrained with the midpoints, so I will delete those midpoint constraints so that my line appears blue. Because again, those were snapped to the bottom plane, but I want to move these up into three-dimensional space. So let's move our points. For this, we need to use the Move command. I will go Modify, Move, and we have been using the free move up until now, where I can select my point, drag it up a specific distance, and hit OK. I will go Modify Move, and this time we will use point to point. So, make your selection first. I'll select this point. Then my origin point will be here. My target point will be the middle of this face, which is a small square. Now we can see that point move into place. When I hit OK, that point is in place and its grip is still in the right location. Let's do the same to this line. I will select my point, go Modify Move, point to point, first point, second point, and hit OK. Now that spline is moved into three-dimensional space and is ready to go. We can also place coincident constraints when we're snapping to exact geometry. Because I have a point here in this sketch and here in this sketch, I can snap these lines directly to it. I'll go coincident, this point to this point, and this point to this point. Let's zoom in, and we can apply tangent constraints as well. You may need to orbit your model into a more appropriate location. I will go tangent and first select this spline. Then I'll select my arc, and you'll see my tangent constraint apply. Next, I'll orbit around, zoom in and select this small line, and then this arc. Now I have my tangent constraints applied to that entire shape, so I can zoom out and hit Escape. Let's move this line now. First, I know I can use a coincident constraint to go here to here, and I can move using the Move command. Modify Move, select my object, this point, and we'll go point to point from here to, again, the center of this face. I'll hit OK, And now I can see that if I go to my right view, my line is not exactly where I want it to be. I can now go to Modify Move again and use the plane slider to move these into a more appropriate location. This doesn't have to be exact, just play with it as you'd like. I'll hit OK and go to my home view. We have now placed 3 splines in our model in 3-dimensional space. Go to the top view and I'll edit these again, Modify Move, just to give these a little better shape. I'll check my side view, and they still look good. Stop your sketch and save your file. In the next video, we will create a profile and then sweep that profile along these sketches. I will see you in the next video.